All right, well, we are back again. So let me just say this. I made the mistake of letting Dave Tobe plan my live stream for tonight. So we had to go back to the drawing board and do some things differently. But the good news is,
That'll do
look
it.
what the cat drug in. We have Aaron with us. So, Aaron, it's
Hopefully, if there's any more issues, I can take over or whatnot.
it's good to have you back here. We're going to catch up for a minute or two as people find their way back on here. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but it seems right in theme tonight after watching the Chiefs game, at least for the special teams and offense.
Yeah, it was a little rough.
Yeah, that's understatement.
Brown was having a horrible game. Usually I won't notice so much, and Liz will tell me that he gave up a pressure or something, and no, it was all game. He was having a hell of a time.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even know who's the guy on that side.
You know, without going back and looking, my guess is it was Ngakwe that was on that side. But
that does make sense. Hey.
Yeah, Jaden's with us. If you're joining the chat here, make sure you check out Jaden's new channel, Toss Power Trap Chiefs Football. Here, I'm going to throw it up here so you can see that's Jaden's channel here. And
that is
I know
100%
he said
accurate.
I know
a lot of bad coaching calls.
Yeah, and you know what? I wasn't going to get into that yet, but yeah. Anyway, before we get into it, I just want to throw. I know Jaden said he's going to have a reaction video tomorrow on his podcast, reacting to this game. So we look forward to seeing that. Now, I tried to stream once, and we had some technical issues, a lot like the Chiefs special teams all throughout this game. And what I was saying there was, Aaron, I was doing my best. I don't know if you caught any of it, but Hefe said I was breaking up. So what I was trying to do to start that game is I was actually trying to give the optimistic part of it. I was forcing myself to get out of character here and try to be as optimistic as possible about this game. And so let's start there. You know, you're not going to get any Kool-Aid from us. And I'm going to try not to be pessimistic, but I'm going to try to keep it real and keep it balanced as well. But keeping things, trying to be optimistic here, Aaron. What I was saying was, you know, I've been wrong the last couple of months because, as you know, I've been saying that we were going to need the offense to keep us in games until the bye week so that the defense could catch up. And then after the bye week, you know, I expected the defense to look great or a lot better. And instead, what we've seen so far through 3 games, in my opinion, the defense has been way, 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 way ahead of schedule from even my most optimistic expectations. And it's really been kind of the opposite. It's been the defense keeping us in the game. And so that was my first optimistic take. What do you think, Aaron? And you want to throw in another one of your own? We can go back and forth on this.
Well, I think we're all surprised. We didn't expect to see the defense react like this right off the bat.
And this without Willie Gay too. So, you know,
yeah,
no Willie Gay, no Trent McDuffie.
He's been playing lights out, and Harris did a solid job. There's that touchdown he got taken advantage of and didn't keep covering. But other than that, he was pretty solid.
So, I mean, that was my first big optimistic thing. I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, because I did, and I'm not going to lie. I've been saying it. We were going to need up to the bye week to get this defense figured out. Now, I know Justin Reed has talked about how smart this defensive room is, but, even then, you expect with so many young guys on there. So that was the first thing that stood out to me, and I guess really that's about the one positive I have from this game. I guess if I force myself to go there, I guess the other positive thing was, if you look at all the negatives in this game, it still came down to a last minute 3-point loss. I mean, I guess that's the other way to look at it. From a positive perspective, you had Willie Gay out, no Trent McDuffie. You had the offensive tackles getting beat up all game. You had no Butker. That was huge. That was at least 7 points off the board right there. Yeah. And, possibly 10, because even if it comes down to a field goal to tie it or win it at the end, Matt Amendola isn't making that, and I'm not trusting him to. And, we joke around about Justin Reed, but you can't really trust Justin Reed to make those field goals either. And about the time that Andy would send him out to kick a 42-yarder or whatever to tie the game at the end of regulation would be when everyone would say, why are you sending your safety out there to kick a long field goal when Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback? So it's almost like a you can't win type of situation there. So, but there's at least 7 points that was off the board simply because Matt Amendola is your kicker as opposed to Harrison Butker. So, you take all these factors in there. I don't know about the Chris Jones personal foul thing. I understand arguments, both ways for that one. There were other missed calls by the refs, some crucial things in there. At the end of the day, though, it takes all of that.
The last touchdown, Chris Jones was held big time.
I mean, I'm sure when we go back and watch this, we're going to see a lot of things because the ref crew wasn't good. No. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to overcome it. It certainly was an ugly game for them, in my opinion. You didn't just have some of that stuff, but you also had what to me is the most textbook definition of defensive pass interference in NFL history. Like, if there was a video textbook for refs, what happened to Travis in the end zone would be it. That would be the definition they show. The defender is facing Travis. He never looks back at all for the ball at any point in the play. He's got both of his hands on Travis's shoulder pads, whether he's pushing them or pulling them or whatever, the whole time. Like, if that isn't defensive pass interference, then nothing in NFL history is defensive pass interference. And so, I guess that's the second.
There was a couple of those at least as well.
Besides that one. It was ugly to see the refs had such a impact in a game. But again, at the end of the day, it took all of this, right? And the home team's always spotted 3 points, right? It took all of this, yeah. and it took them to come down and score to take the lead with 25, 35 seconds left or whatever. And I mean, yeah, at least 7 points. If Butker's there, we're probably ahead by way more than that anyway. But even so, even if you look at just that last moment, if you have Butker in there, Mahomes isn't forcing that very last pass that gets intercepted. Mahomes is just looking for an extra 5 or 10 yards for Butker there, because they were in field goal range for Butker. And that was the funny thing. When they were showing the field goal line, I don't know if you got to watch the game, Aaron, but when I saw them put that field goal line up there, I turned to my wife, I said, that's for Butker. That's not for Matt Amendola. So I don't know why they put it up there. So anyway, yeah, that was really stupid on the CBS graphics department. But so yeah, that's the optimistic take for me. Those
This
two things. So
this still should have never come down to what, 2 calls by the refs that we can think of off the top of our heads. It should never come down to the refs. Hey Doug, good to see you.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you can look at one play and you can try to isolate it, but I know Chris Jones is taking all the flack, and there's some truth to that. He shouldn't have been running his mouth.
There
I
was no
to
reason for him to still be there even.
Right. I think what really kind of got him though was he was talking to Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan was smart enough to walk away. I think there's something when you're both facing each other and you're both jawing, because you see that all the time, and nothing happens, right? But the
Yeah.
moment Matt Ryan walks away and he's still talking to him, I think that's part of it, which is funny because to me, I thought the ugliest part actually looked like if there was anything I thought could have been called, it was when Matt Ryan was on the ground and Chris Jones, was like hovered over him, and you could tell he had his face mask to face mask and he was talking trash to him. To me, like that was the ugliest part of the whole situation. But the flag didn't come out until Matt Ryan's walking away and whatever Chris Jones said. And so I still think, I don't know. I also agree with other people though that talk about the precedent that sets, right? And we can go back to the whole Tom Brady, Tyrann Mathieu in the Super Bowl thing. There is no flag for that, whatever Brady said. So, is it because it's a defensive player? Is it because the ref didn't say it was because Matt Ryan was walking away. He said it was because of whatever Chris Jones said, and he didn't say what that was. But it just felt like the refs were interjecting themselves into this game at very pivotal points, almost intentionally to influence it. Like that's how I'm not accusing them of it. I'm saying that's how it felt as a Chiefs fan watching it. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs didn't lose this game because of the refs. And I don't even think it's fair to say that they lost the game because of Chris Jones, even though it was a very important penalty and a very important moment of the game that had a swing on the outcome of the game. You can still look at the 7 points that was lost because you don't have Harrison Butker out there.
Well, plus Kelsey not getting that ball in the end zone. That
Right.
should have been caught.
And then the pass interference there that wasn't called.
And he's messing
Special
up
teams.
my fantasy.
My fantasy looks good. I was so mad that you grabbed Travis this year because I got him last year, and I was so mad. I don't know who grabbed, but I had Jalen Hurts last year, and he helped me win, but he's done even better this year so far. But you know what? I ended up with Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, and so far, I think they're giving me like 60 points a game between the two of them, so I'm not complaining there.
I'm really still doing just fine.
I'm gonna hit KL 368s, and then Doug, I'm gonna come back to yours here. Special teams and offense lost this game. Yeah, if you guys are just joining us, you missed my joke here because we had to restart the live stream, and like I said, I shouldn't have trusted Dave Tobe to plan things out for me. If you have listened to Gooch and I on the huddle, if you've listened to us even on BAK, I have talked extensively over the last year or so about Dave Tobe's special teams getting worse and worse. I think it started when they made him the assistant head coach and he started taking on those other duties. As other teams were looking, and there were rumors that someone might be wanting to interview him, and we made him the assistant head coach, and he's taken on some of those duties. To me, I've seen special teams go down more and more the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I just think when the Chiefs offense was doing well, 2 or 3 years ago, it was, is that my house or your house? 2 or 3 years ago.
Definitely my house.
I wasn't sure. 2 or 3 years ago, when the offense was such a well-oiled machine, some of those defensive and special teams things weren't so obvious, but over the last couple of years, they're becoming more and more obvious. And I think I talked about it spring or preseason. I didn't like the aggressive runouts. That's something that they've done in regular season before this season. Dave Toub was one of the people that spearheaded the NFL changing the touchback from the 20 to the 25 to discourage kick returns. He was one of the guys who spearheaded that.
And when you continue to bring it out and continue to get stopped before the 25,
right?
Why would you keep it going?
And that's what's frustrating. It's like we get to the 40 or, maybe even end up further with that. We bring it out to the 40 or we get a 60-yard run or something. Maybe once every 6 weeks or so. Someone can look up the stats. I don't really care. And to him, that's like justification. The small sliver of a chance that we pop a big run is worth all these starting at the 5, 10, 15, 20-yard line. Because I guess the one positive there is there wasn't really any holding calls on those kick returns, right? Usually there are, though. Usually there are. And we start out at the 5 or 10-yard line, and it hurts our offense even worse. Like this game, the first half really felt like a huge field position battle that Frank Wright started to screw up on fourth down. Multiple times he bailed us out. And give credit to our defense. Our defense, stopped them. Where if he had continued to punt, it would have been a much harder field position game for us. Like they were helping us. And so I don't know. Again, I've been frustrated about Toub doing this on special teams, more than just this year, more than just this game. This isn't me ranting on this game. It's you seeing it so much clearer in this game. I think it's a bad philosophy. He has an overly aggressive philosophy that it bites us in the butt. A lot of games, the offense overcomes it, or the defense takes the blame in the loss. This game, we had a mini bye week. We had extra days to prepare. And the only unit that really looked ready to play was the defense.
Absolutely.
Kudos to Spags, because that's usually the first place I'm targeting. So
I don't know if I could say that, because I did not agree with playing zone on third downs. I don't know where that's coming from. McDuffie is his own guy. I could see if he was doing some zone, but he's not even in there. He's the zone guy. Snead and Watson, you can play man-to-man. Fenton's not bad at man-to-man. Why are you playing zone so much when you don't have the people for it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a matter of when, right? Like we said last week, we had the Chargers at like 3rd and 2, and we had guys in zone 8 yards off the ball. Like anybody could recognize pre-snap. If there's not a guy within 8 yards and you only need 2 yards, you're hiking the ball, you're getting the ball out to that guy really quickly, and you're picking up an easy first down.
Exactly.
So,
and especially with the running back right there, giving him that much of a cushion when he's at the first down marker. I don't get it.
Still overall, I thought it was a really good performance from the defense. I think they held Jonathan Taylor to something like 68 yards, I want to say.
Sounds about right.
So, kudos to them for the most part. It really looked like early on the Colts were picking on Fenton. I don't know. I'll say this because we already gave our kudos to the defense, but I want to point out a couple particular players who clearly stood out on the defense, um, and that is L'Jarius Sneed and Nick Bolton. Like those two guys are legitimate studs. They were legitimate studs in this game, including that fourth down stop on 4th and 1 where Jonathan Taylor went flying over the pile and
Tried to.
yeah, well, he was flying over the pile and then
Got caught midair.
He crashed into a wall called Nick Bolton, which in some ways this game was kind of like Nick Bolton breaking Derrick Henry last year. So those two guys were flying around and were super fun to watch, and were definitely making plays. And so
that sack he got was pretty great too. I thought he was going to get away from him for a second there.
And I mean, again, we can imagine what this defense would have looked like with Willie Gay and Trent McDuffie in there. And man,
and
we might have a legitimate defense. So
Dunlap did get the first hand on Taylor. So yeah, he did a good job on that as well.
Right, but still, the impressive play was Nick Bolton's two hands. It was almost like Star Wars, and Nick Bolton's using the Force and stopping Jonathan Taylor right there, in midair. So
that's kind of funny. I was just watching Star Wars, honestly.
So
I hadn't watched all the movies yet, the latest ones that are actually
Star Wars, so
in the series. So I watched 7 and 8 yesterday. Started 9, but was falling asleep the whole time.
All right, let me try to go back and get some stuff here that we missed. Jaden says, going to Bucks Chiefs next week, ready to bring the kingdom to Tampa. You know what? That's an interesting game.
Yeah, they're not looking too good so far. I forgot to pause it, though.
Yeah, like my early impression right now is, with Tom Brady and like 9,000 receivers injured, and watching what we did to Jonathan Taylor, it doesn't seem like Fournette should be able to run over us. But, it seems like when something shouldn't happen, it does. But just like Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan is clearly more mobile than Tom Brady is. We actually saw him, scrambling a little bit in this game, which I thought was interesting, because I thought he was basically going to go down, like Tom Brady does. So offensively, I'm almost at the point where if the Bucks don't get their receivers back, I think their offense is worse than the Colts offense that we just played. I think the big problem is, though, their defense, in my estimation, is way better than the defense of the Colts that we just played. So
I don't know. They're both pretty good, and Rodgers is tearing them up. Last I saw, at least. I had a point I was going to make. I can't think of where I was going to go, though.
Sorry about that.
You're good. Liz is calling us nerds.
All right. Doug says, why? Because of Star Wars?
I guess.
All my kids love Star Wars, so I don't know why is she being mean to kids? Anyway, Doug says Orlando Brown isn't getting his big contract. Needs to do a lot better. I wish Gooch was here so he could publicly apologize to me, for all the incorrect verbal lashing he gave me throughout the Orlando Brown saga. But I'm not surprised he's ducking out on this one. Honestly, hopefully Orlando continues to get better throughout the season. But I think
this was not his game.
Has he had a game yet this season where we've said, you know what, this is why we needed to pay him, though? We're 3 games into the season. I don't think we're going to be saying that next week against Tampa Bay. I don't think we're going to be saying that against the Bills. how many games are we going to have this season where we say, that's the guy we should have paid versus saying
it's sad when Wiley, of all people, is doing better than him.
I'm just really concerned, how many games are we going to be able to say that versus saying, thank God he turned down Veach's offer. Hopefully he gets better. Hopefully they fix whatever the issue is.
How angry would we be if he took it?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and how much more angry would we have been if Veach had caved and given him the offer he wanted?
Yeah.
People would have been saying fire Veach, and those voices would have been loud. Anyway, hopefully he
wouldn't have been for
better.
it. Yeah, I still wouldn't have been for it because one or two mistakes does not equal being fired, because you're not going to hit on everybody.
Right.
And then, they got to put up the effort and put the time and work in. And I don't know if it was the holdout is why he's doing so bad right now. But this was a horrible game for him.
Yeah. What I do know is he needs to figure it out because, it's affecting our offense. But listen, I think Veach's offer was generous as is and would have been generous for next year had he played similarly to last year. But the way this season is starting out, I'm not even sure I don't know how much more he can make next year over what he's already making this year with the franchise tag. Like, I'm not sure a team would offer a long-term contract. I'm not sure they would.
I think it was a third down. Mahomes is looking behind me behind him at this guy, not behind me. And he doesn't do that. So then he was off on his throw and losing his balance because he was looking back at Orlando's guy because he knew he was coming. Because it was happening all game. I don't know.
Yeah.
At what point do you put somebody else in there just to see?
Well, I don't think we have that somebody else. I think it was nerve-wracking enough when Wiley went out. And we're talking about Wiley here, right?
And Reed is not the type to pull a guy.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're talking about Wiley, though. So, we're talking about a solid guy who probably should be a backup. He's a guy who, if he is your backup, you're super excited he's your backup. As your starter, you're just kind of like, eh. I mean, yeah, we could do worse. We could do better, though, as well. And so when he went out, everybody's like, who's the backup? Lucas Niang's injured. He's not on the team. Kennard isn't, wasn't active for the game and wouldn't have been ready anyway. So who's the next man up? And so what would you even do at left tackle? What I think is more interesting is, and if Gooch was on here, he's the king of petty, so he could answer on this, but
Christian,
why weren't they helping Jones out? Or sorry, why weren't they helping Brown out more? Are they making a statement? It's hard to say something like that as if the coaching staff would be willing to let him fail to make a statement.
But yes, Chip.
But yeah, they weren't helping out.
Not at all. When he's clearly getting beat every other play.
And this is something we've seen out of the coaching staff. Sometimes it's a positive. Other times, it's a negative. They're willing to let these guys lose over and over and over again. We talked about it before. It was the same thing in both of the Super Bowls, right? The 49ers, they were beating up Fisher and Schwartz for 3 quarters. Did we stop calling, those long developing plays? No. What happened is we started to connect on some in the fourth quarter. That was the main thing. Whether some of that was, refs letting, letting Fisher and Schwartz get away with a little holding or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that, but we've seen it back then, and I can understand if Andy's attitude to Brown is, hey, you want to be paid like the top left tackle in the NFL, you shouldn't need help out there. So I'm not. I can't take someone away to put him out there. I'd like to see it though. I'd like to see some chip and release. I don't know what the answer is though, because I don't think that I'm not trying to take away from the Colts defense, but I didn't see anything overly special out of them, and other than the Arizona game, 2 out of our 3 games haven't looked pretty offensively. This game, we didn't even have a running game. CEH had 7 carries for 0 yards.
Oh, wow. Pacheco didn't do great. McKinnon looked okay, but...
And I don't understand the play calling. And I know former Chief Jeff Allen asked on Twitter, why is it when the offense looks good, we give credit to Andy Reid, and when the offense looks bad, we blame it on Eric Bieniemy? I think it's a relevant question, but I don't know what your answer is, Aaron, but for me, there are games where the play calling looks night and day different. I guess that would be the best answer I can give. There are games where the play calling looks really good, and then there are games where the play calling looks really bad, and they're so night and day different that the only logical explanation that fans can formulate is that you have multiple people calling plays. But I don't know. What do you think, Aaron? What do you guys think in the chat? Is that why, is that how you feel?
As far as the play calling?
Yeah.
It has... I don't know what they did different in the Cardinals game that they have in the other 2, but things are not working the way they should be. Why do you not continue to make the calls you did in the Cardinals game? Just because we were ahead by so much most of the game? Which I knew they had a real good defense, but this game shouldn't have been close. They freaking tied the Texans and lost to Jacksonville. This should have been a blowout. This shouldn't have come down to a couple calls by the refs. It shouldn't have even been close to that. You've got to get more creative or something. You know where your mismatches are going to be. Exploit it. And Pat had no time. You got a chip or something. You got to give him some kind of time.
Right.
For 4 to get across 5 guys constantly.
Chip, roll them out to the right, away from Brown and the rusher. You got to do something.
Start doing quick passes. I know Hardman was hurting, but you still have other people. Was there holding on Fortson? I mean, I don't remember seeing him much.
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing him either.
Gray was in there quite a bit more, it seemed like.
Our defense really worked in unison tonight, and that should be the biggest bright spot. Yeah, I mean, we said that way ahead of where we expected. So Doug says the tables have turned: exciting defense, boring offense. That feels weird to say. And Doug, I can't do it. This is my college team. I need my NFL team to have some offense because I can't watch Saturday football and watch a team that's all defense and no offense and do the same thing on Sunday. So I got to have the offense. Preferably watch everything in one: offense, defense, and special teams. So.
Hey, real KB.
Kale 368 says the Tampa defense still looks like the best in the league. Yeah, I think the Packers offense, they started slow. They started slow last year, though, didn't they? It's just kind of what they do. They'll get their kinks worked out. Um, yeah, that could be very relevant. You know, Trey Smith not being 100% there, but him being whatever percent he is probably better than Allegretti or someone else being there. But the interior offensive line has still been really steady. They're still getting uh, top ratings by ESPN and PFF and everyone else right now. So let's say here, Liz says, I would, to be honest, possibly a reason you saw the argument with Bieniemy and Patrick. You don't see Patrick yelling often, let alone at a coach. Yeah, and I'm sure Bieniemy just laughed that off as the whole competitive prick thing. But yeah, I don't know. This is all confusing because I think in our minds, it's kind of like the Orlando thing. Orlando having a great season is best for everybody, right? It's best for Orlando, his free agency next year. It's best for the offense, it's best for Mahomes. It's kind of like the same thing with EB and Patrick. Those two being on the same page and EB calling great games and Patrick performing great, like it all helps each other because I don't think EB's back here next year regardless. And the performance of this offense, I think, is really going to dictate whether that's because he's moving on to another team in the same position or even getting, demoted back to a position coach or going off to college or actually becoming a head coach. It's not going to happen when you have continual shots throughout the season of Patrick Mahomes and EB yelling and very underwhelming offensive performances. I know that much. Yeah. Schmitty says that Mahomes and EB haven't looked like they haven't been on the same page since halftime of the AFC title game. And I know someone pointed out that that's the other time, that the last time they had a yelling match and they only came out and produced 3 points in the second half. So yeah, interesting thoughts and dynamics there. All I know is this: you had what, 10 days to prepare for this, and this is your offensive showing. I think it's embarrassing, and I get some slack for it because I'm not 100% Kool-Aid snorter. I don't worship the ground that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy walk on. Gooch gets hate because he doesn't worship the ground Mahomes walks on, and he points out, when he's got mechanical things going on or whatever. But I've talked about it numerous times. This is the same coaching staff who came into Super Bowl 55 completely and utterly unprepared with 2 weeks to plan for it. And this game doesn't feel a whole lot different there. So, I mean, to me, this is a coaching dud. And yes, players got to go out and perform. But what happened to coaches putting players in the best situations to succeed? And there's been what, 6, 7, 8 other chief channels reacting to today's game, and others have pointed out we haven't seen all the different run blocking schemes. We didn't see counters being ran. We didn't see all this stuff. And who's that on? What decisions were made? And so that's kind of the disappointing thing there. Hopefully we get Aaron back in here. But anyway, lots of back and forth on the sideline. So we have here from Doug. Yeah, Doug, it's good to see Aaron here and Liz back in the chat, and I know they appreciate everyone's thoughts and prayers being with them right now. So the real KB, Andy minimized the disagreement in the post game presser. I mean, that's what Andy does, though, you know. So, I mean, I take what Andy says with a grain of salt because that's just who he is and it's what he does. You can't discount that when they get into these arguments, good things don't happen afterwards for the rest of the game. Like there are fundamental things going on here, and they shouldn't be going on because you have all these extra days to prepare for this game. Andy, Eric, Matt, and Pat should all be on the same page, during those 10 days while you're planning, while you're putting together your game plan for this game. And at the very least, when you go at halftime and Pat's telling you what he's seen and everything on the field, that has to have some effect to your halftime adjustments and the direction that you go for the rest of the game. So, and I understand where Pat was coming from there, and I understand where Eric and probably Andy were coming from there on that second down run. It seemed clear to me that their mindset was, if it's a huge run, great. If not, we're going in at halftime. We're not giving the Colts the ball back. I understand. Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on Pat in this game. At the same time, our defense was playing great, so maybe trust them a little bit more. What were your thoughts on that, Aaron? The decision there to basically just run the clock out with that run on second down and not run another play before halftime.
I don't really get why they did it. I mean, I think that was the only argument they were having is why are you not trying to score on before the half? Try to do the old Brady Belichick thing and get 2 scores back to back. But they were getting pressure because Orlando wasn't holding up, and I think that had a lot to do with it. That's why they just went ahead and ran the clock out. But I kind of get it. And yeah, Patrick is very competitive, so he wants to score every play.
Right. My favorite shots are when it's 4th and short and you see the field goal team or the punt team trying to run out there and Pat's like looking and trying to wave everybody off. It's like we're going for it. It's like you guys should all be talking about these scenarios in your week of planning leading up to the game. Are we or aren't we going in these situations? But
and then Roma was thrown off by the 4th and short, giving it to the fullback. I was not. I assume that's what we were doing.
Romo was off his game today as well. Like I don't know if he was hanging out with Tobe or what, but he was off his game. This was not a very Tony Romo-esque performance, in my opinion. But
I know he's annoying us.
So, and there were things that he knew better. He knew better as a quarterback himself. Like I can't think of all the plays, but there were numerous plays where I'm just like, come on, Tony, you know better than that. Even like the play where Pat's running towards the sideline and he gets some face mask as he's stiff arming the defender there. And Tony tries to excuse that away as why they didn't throw a flag. It doesn't matter. You got to throw a flag there. You want to throw the flag on Mahomes as well? Go ahead and do it. But it doesn't matter, as we figured out, what was it, last year, right? Penalty math doesn't make sense, right? In a real world, if one team has a 5-yard penalty and the other one has a 10-yard penalty,
They shouldn't offset.
you don't get the extra 5 yards there. And if if one team has a 10-yard holding penalty and the other one has a 15-yard personal foul, in my opinion, regardless, a personal foul should supersede any offsetting penalties because it's a personal foul.
I
If it's
swear it used
something
to.
if it's something you're enforcing, it's the way it should be. But regardless, at the end of the day, as we found out last year, I believe it was last year in one of the games, maybe it was the year before, even if one team has two penalties and the other one only has one, and it's all on the same play, it's all offsetting. So go ahead, flag Mahomes if you want to for the face mask, but you have to flag the defender for the face mask. It's a blatant call there. Like, you don't get to say we're not going to call it. You have to call it. And even if the Chiefs have two penalties on there, one for holding and one for face mask, you still have the Colts with the face mask, and that's offsetting, and you replay third down there. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean the reality is going to change completely, but there's a big difference between what, 3rd and 7 and third and 17, or did they decline the penalty and it was 4th and 7 or whatever? Yeah. Getting to replay 3rd and 7 against the Chiefs offense, you can look at the statistics and the analytics for it. It's not a place you want to be as a defense. So it was a huge no call on the offsetting penalties, which is exactly what it should have been on that play. So Tony missed a few there today. Yeah. In the locker room is one thing, but on the sideline until Andy has to break it up, it is a concern. I mean, I think that's just like how Mahomes plays. Like, he plays that animated, it's just as Evie says, he's a competitive prick. I think they understand, that he wants to go for it probably every 4th down. He wants to go, he's like a lot of us as fans. He doesn't want to have to kneel down at halftime. He wants to keep going.
I don't think it was that big of a deal. So, people are going to have arguments about what they want to do. That's all there is to it. I don't think it was a lack of respect or anything like that. It was just, I want to go for that. Well, you're getting pressured, so we're not going to.
Right. Again, I understand both sides of it. So, yeah. We talked about Bolton. Bolton, to me, I think Bolton has shown enough to solidify himself as one of the top linebackers in the NFL. And I think if they asked running backs in the NFL, I think they would agree with that.
There's just one you want to hear about, though. How frustrated he was. All right. So, yeah.
Yeah, Liz, it's good to see you in the chat. Aaron, it really is good to have you back on here. I know life has been crazy in numerous ways, and Liz, I understand this. Yesterday was 22 years for me, and I can tell you, I wish I could tell you it gets easier, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. And then she was giving the eulogy and had me go up with her. So, and the toughest part was seeing our nieces. How bad they were crying. But it was funny, her saying they got her brother from a ditch, and then the kids were asking her afterwards, did they really find Patrick in a ditch? Or black hole or something like that is what they said. Kids are funny.
You're talking about a ditch here, and it reminds me, my dad's best friend, and this guy was like a complete and utter alcoholic. Like, his own father bottle fed him alcohol as a baby. Like, just kind of messed up family. type of stuff. But so this guy, you know, he could function way over the legal limit, probably better than basically anyone in, you know, in the history of drinking alcohol. And one day he's driving home from the bar and wrecks his car, and the cops come across the scene, and he had covered himself up with leaves and was laying on the side of the road. And the cop comes up and finds him and was checking on him, and he says to the cop, "Don't worry about me. Just find the SOB that ran me off the road." And the cop said, "I think we found him."
He ran
That's my
himself off the road.
that's my covered up on the side of the road story there.
We do appreciate you putting the donation in. He would have loved that to the senior dogs rescue. And then the plants are nice. We've got them on the oven right now. It was a bit much, but it is appreciated. You guys don't have to do all that.
Well, we did what we felt brothers should do, and you know there's so many shelters and stuff out there, and we had no idea, what to. But we saw that one pop up. It's like this one feels right. So yeah, it's awesome that there's a shelter out there specifically for senior dogs. So I'm a big dog person now. I'm not going to get into cats. So
Well, we've got Gutter. There was another one, though, that was in the middle of the road on my way home on my street and just laying in the middle of the road, probably a 6-month old kitten, and wasn't moving. Nothing wrong with it. She just wasn't moving. So I got out of the truck and to check on it and everything, and she came up to me pretty quick and pet her, and she ended up hanging out at the house all day. But they seem to find our house, whether it's a stray cat or a stray dog. They seem to find us. They know where to come. But one of the neighbors sent her with their aunt, and yeah, she hasn't been back. So she was
right.
too sweet and well mannered. She just was not cared for very well. Whoever she was starving. And us having a cat, I had some cat food to give her, and she downed it in like 5 minutes. And some milk.
Kill 368 says, I really thought we'd dial up some more running backs in the passing game, attacking those linebackers, and we did barely any of that. I mean, yeah, this is the thing that's kind of frustrating, right? Because whether it's stuff like that, whether it's the preseason kind of looks we saw where, we had Sky Moore and McCole Hardman in the backfield, some of those different configurations, 3 tight ends out there, there's all these things that we wanted to see and we wanted to see more of, that we've expected to see more of, and then you don't see these things, and it's like, what's going on? And I know some people say, well, we're saving stuff. We heard that during Super Bowl runs as well, and we never saw it, right? We didn't open up the playbook against the Buccaneers. Like, we didn't we didn't open up the playbook that much against the 49ers. It's like, what are we saving all these plays for if they really exist? So, I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think there's a lot of things we need to see more of. I hope that's the case, that it's more of a, we're in week 3 and we don't want to throw as much out there as possible. because then we give teams the opportunity to be looking out for it, as the season goes on. I hope that's not it. But sometimes it certainly feels like we're trying to show as little as possible for the next game. Well, you got to win these games to have to worry about, what happens for those games at the end of the season to matter, for playoff games to matter. And I think that was the most frustrating thing about this. There's nothing wrong with losing a game. And again, we talked about everything that had to go wrong in this game for us to lose by 3 points the last 30 seconds of this game. There's nothing wrong with losing a game. I think part of it is just how bad and badly coached we looked in 2 out of the 3 facets of the game. But even more than that is we're getting ready to enter into the stretch of games that are the hardest we're playing on paper. The hardest ones we're playing all season is the stretch that's coming up right now. And this should have been a very winnable game. We should have been 3-0 going into that stretch, which is way, way, way better than 2-1. So, I think that to me, that's like the biggest thing in all of this. But
it did seem like we were looking past them to Tampa Bay, which, yeah, it's still any given Sunday.
Doesn't matter. The Bucks just got beat.
Oh yeah.
Bucks got beat. The Jags stomped the Chargers.
Jags aren't looking too bad, are they? Didn't expect that.
I know Gooch didn't, because he was telling us how bad Trevor Lawrence is.
I never said Trevor Lawrence was bad. I just said he doesn't have an arm and he doesn't read defense as well, so he throws behind the receiver.
So wait. All right. So if he doesn't have an arm and he doesn't read defenses, what other conclusion can we draw from that?
The Chargers actually suck, and we should have beat them by more.
Let me say this, Gooch. You'll be really surprised, and I doubt you've ever played Madden, but you'll be surprised to learn that at the beginning of this season, the Madden team had Trevor Lawrence having a superstar development trait, which was completely dumbfounding to me, given that he hadn't showed anything last year. But anyway.
Really? I'm going to have to take my Madden out of the package. When I got my PS5, they gave me Madden for free, and I just kind of threw it on the shelf.
Huh.
That's nice. The package I got had crappy games in it. So anyway.
I do not have a PS5.
What does Liz say here? Liz says, see, I'm petty enough to think let Orlando Brown Jr. get kicked into the ground constantly for a few games. He didn't show up until late to start playing with his team because he was trying to blackmail them into let me scroll down here, contract.
Liz who? LT?
What?
I told you to wait in the truck.
Real KB says, I kind of agree, but hate to see Patrick scrambling. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't make sense here that we're not helping him out. So I can't see Andy being petty like that. That's Patrick and that's Gooch and Keys territory there. But at the same time, I could see a small sliver to where Andy's like, you think you're the best left tackle in the NFL? Well, go out there and show me. I'm not giving you help.
Ngakwe was eating his lunch today.
Yes, he was. He had an awful game.
I'm sure Veach is sitting in the office like 25 mil, huh?
Right. Here's my question. Okay. I'm not going to ask who's the first coach to be fired. What I'm going to ask is how long does it take for Orlando Brown Jr. to fire his agent? Or, I mean, should he even blame his agent at all and take all the responsibility there?
Yes, absolutely.
He'll probably fire him after he gets to his next team.
But right now, Gooch, we're questioning what's he going to make next year. Do you think he can? Do you think he can even, at this point, without any improvement? And we know that's certainly a possibility that that he continues to improve throughout the season,
Can he
or
do
they
worse
help
than
him
that?
out or whatever. But if he continues at this trajectory, can you see him even getting what Veach offered? Do you even think a team would be willing to give him a long-term contract?
No, here's
if you
the
continue
thing.
to show that?
First of all, I want to point out to all y'all that hated Eric Fisher, I bet you love to have him right now because he could handle speed rushers like Ngakoue. Even though he was weaker against power, he held up. This offense is designed to where you really shouldn't have to chip the left side. But Orlando needs help. And the game is only going to get faster as you get closer and into the playoffs. And you're not going to have those power rushers. It's going to be all speed. If he can't handle it now, when he needs to stand up and hold his ground in the playoffs, Pat's going to be running for his life again. Also, I'd like
Is
to
he
point
possibly still not in football shape?
out, 3 games in, they said he was working out during the summer, getting in shape and stuff.
Yeah, but we hear that
doesn't
about
tell me
players
anything.
every offseason, and they rarely do they come in looking like they're in shape.
Our wide receivers, quarterback, and running backs did.
So, I mean, I believe I talked about this.
Creed, Trey, and Tooney looked like they were in shape.
Yes.
No, I mean when
They've been there
players
the
hold
whole
out.
time.
I'm talking about when players hold out, and they say,
okay.
I've still been working out away from the team facility. It seems like lot of times when they do, they don't look like they're in game shape.
You mean kind of like Gronk did to Tampa Bay, where he just changed his shirt and run the same sprint over and send it in different days?
By his own admission. Right. But, I forgot what I was going to say now. I'll get it here in a second. Somebody else talk. I'll get it. I'll get it back here.
Well, like I was saying earlier, this is a team that tied the Texans and lost to Jacksonville, and they beat us. How does this happen? Were we looking ahead?
Hang on, they beat the Chargers just now too by a considerable margin, 38-16.
They evidently have a defense.
I thought the Jaguars were going to be way better this year than what people were giving them credit for. Like, Urban Meyer was such a terrible head coach, and we know all the drama and all the he was basically putting everything on all of his assistants. And if a team like that can win 2 games, it's a huge bump up to Doug Peterson, who's won a Super Bowl. And then you add in the draft picks, the players they added. But, I remember talking about in the offseason, going back to Brown. And, I kind of wonder right now how much we can actually afford to help him on offense. Because when teams are playing us the way that they had been playing us, you only have so many receiving options out there. They all, they're seemingly being covered. So can you really afford to keep a guy in? I think that's kind of the conflict that they're being put in. Do you chip and release? Is that the answer? Because I don't think you can dedicate one guy just to stay in there. Because if you do that, now all of a sudden you only have what? 3 receivers going out and 7 guys into coverage? Who's going to get open there?
Right. Well, I know in the off season we were talking and saying this could be a loss anyway. So
Right. That's one of, I guess that's one of the optimistic ways to look at it. I think though, when you saw that was on paper, right? And so we had 2 weeks to see this team on the field, on film. And granted, those were 2 games against teams in their division, and we know how teams in your division go. But yeah, I think my biggest thing in the off season, when we were talking about Brown, Gooch, I don't know if you remember this, but you were talking about, him not being able to handle speed, but he can handle power. And I remember saying, yeah, but what's going to stop defensive coordinators from taking their speed guy and saying, hey, I know, maybe you're always going up against the right tackle, but we're playing the Chiefs. You're going to be over going up against Orlando Brown this week. And what's going to stop other teams from doing that now? I know I said that during the offseason. What's going to stop teams from doing that moving forward, right? They're not going to put their power guy on Orlando. Guess who they're going to put their power guy on? Andrew Wiley. They'll let their speed guy go up against Orlando Brown.
which Wiley does do better against power.
Right, but I mean, it won't matter if the speed guys are beating Orlando so badly. It's kind of the thing. Like, what? So what do they do? Because if you keep someone to chip, that's one less guy out there getting open while the other team's dropping 7 into coverage. And we're not even talking about the issues we had in the run game. I don't feel like that 0 yards on 7 carries was all on CEH.
There was a run game? I must have missed it.
In theory.
I mean, I was unable to watch the game, so I had to listen to the Colts play-by-play, which already sucks because they're just terrible broadcasters. But, I mean, from what I could tell, there was no running game. At least I didn't think.
There really wasn't.
Oh, Pacheco got 4 yards. I did hear that one time.
Yeah, and he toughed that one out. I mean, there was basically nothing there. It kind of looked like one of those Jonathan Taylor runs where, contact's made around the line of scrimmage, and you're like, oh, great, a tackle for loss. And even though they bring Taylor down, he somehow manages to get 4 or 5 yards. It was kind of one of those plays.
Can I briefly change the subject?
Sure.
It's still going to be Chiefs related, but I think I should bring it up. Can we all acknowledge that the shine is off of EB now? Can we all acknowledge that perhaps the stories in the offseason, although everybody attacked that small publication and made them delete it, may have been some truth to it? I think I was probably one of the few people that was on the publication side. Does anybody notice that for the last few years, EB was the next best thing in coaching? And now he called all the Chiefs plays. Andy even said it. But yet in the primetime games, they're not even showing EB anymore, except for the fight with Mahomes today. They're showing Andy. Can we all agree that this is probably EB's last year? They're not going to sign another one-year deal. Anybody else have anything to say on that?
I think that was a foregone conclusion, at least for me. Like, in my mind, Matt Nagy was brought back to replace EB for next year. So I didn't see EB coming back one way or the other, no matter what happens.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, it's just, but little bitty things have been like shouting, screaming at me like they tried to get him a job across the NFL. Even where he grew up in Denver, he couldn't lock down a job. Grew up in Colorado, went to Colorado, was a stud in Colorado, can't get the job in Colorado. I just think that now it's to the point to where if you listen to people's words, he's a great leader of men. I mean, it's okay to lead guys when you're not the lead dog. It's easy to be second in command if you don't have the responsibilities of the big chair. What that screams to me is that he's not ready to lead a billion-dollar organization. He can lead the guys, but as far as being the face of a billion-dollar franchise, nobody sees it. And I don't think the Chiefs saw it, which is why Andy hasn't stepped down yet. Because Andy could have went after a Super Bowl. But the next person in line would have been EB. And I think Andy sees it. He can't lead it. He can coach it. I don't know how good of a coach he is for real. But I don't think he can lead it. And I think this 17 games, they're going to be like, we're sorry, we're going in a different direction. You're going to be catching as a coordinator somewhere else.
And what did the offense look like with Nagy as the OC?
That was Pat's 2018, right? 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 8 interceptions, whatever it was. Wasn't that Nagy's last year?
I'd have to look that up.
Even if it was the next year, it was still really good.
The offense looked a lot crisper, cleaner, more diverse.
No,
Easier.
Nagy left for the Bears 2018, so 2017 was his 16 and 17 was his stint as offensive coordinator.
So that was still Alex, which Alex never looked better.
Yeah. Or 4,000 yards for Alex in the MVP conversation. Most downfield passes of anybody in the league that year.
Which Alex was never up there for
best
that.
Best kicker in all of football, running the ball.
We could have used him kicking some field goals in this game.
Why wasn't
Evidently.
what is there a rule that says if you start as a safety, you can't kick field goals or whatever?
If there is, I've never heard of it.
Like, I can't understand after the missed extra point. Like, I really think that's another reason why we lost and we tried all those, well, the two fourth down, whatever they were, because once he shanked the extra point and then the gimme field goal, I'm not trusting you again. Like, I want to see tomorrow the Chiefs have released I want to say Danny Amendola, but that's not him.
Matt. Yeah. Well, I said on Twitter they should have showed him the Herm Edwards treatment. I don't know if you caught that this last week, though, Gooch. Did you?
No, I didn't catch it.
After Herm was coaching Arizona State, right? He walked off the field at the end of the game, and the AD and somebody else met him at the end zone to let him know he'd been fired.
Seriously?
Yeah.
They didn't even let him leave the stadium?
Nope. They met him at the end zone.
Turn around, get a good look. Last time you're going to see this field, buddy. I'm sorry.
That's crazy.
That was the
I've never heard of that.
Just a little bit.
I feel bad for the kid because realistically, he knew this was a short audition for him, right? He was auditioning for another team. He knew that, or he should have known that. So
the problem is we gave him a shot because we figured not everybody can be terrible that kicks for the Jets, right? But apparently he was.
Well, he did decent last week, but yeah, everything was short.
He only kicked twice last week. Dollars to donuts, Butker's out there next week with an air cast. His ass is going to be activated.
I'm fine with him taking a one-step kick.
Or Reed practices it a lot more this week.
Reed practices it, and they cut him and leave an open roster spot.
I mean, something's got to give there. But, speaking of special teams while we're there, and we're talking about those decisions, and we're talking about that fake field goal, I've heard lots of people say, clearly that says something about their trust in Amendola that they were faking the field goal. And I've also seen people say, how do you have, and if Holly's joined us, nothing against Tommy Townsend, because, we've seen the Chiefs run fakes, fake punt before, and we've seen him throw some lasers there, right? But what does that, so I know that, there were comments out there about how do you not have Mahomes there? What does that say about the offense that you do fake it? Not just that Mahomes didn't throw that pass, that Tommy Townsend threw it, but that you felt that you needed to have Tommy Townsend on a fake do it instead of having Mahomes with his offense out there. Like, you had to be deceptive about it. What does that say about the offense?
I don't think it says much. I think it says more about the fact that the Colts players were playing our receivers really tight. And there were a lot of broken up passes. And I think when you put on your special teams unit, you're not going to have your top two corners out there. So if you can get somebody that can get a little bit of separation, let's face it, we've seen Tommy throw some darts. You know what I'm saying? If you can get a decent receiver, say, maybe even just Sky
Justin
Moore
Watson
out there or something, Justin Watson out there on the third or fourth corner, you know what I'm saying? You have a better chance of completing, because shout out to Indy's defense. If it wouldn't have been for our defense giving us short fields, we were having trouble getting free from their secondary. I mean,
that was a fake from the beginning.
Yeah, the field goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed to be.
Okay.
I mean, he was running the route as a receiver there. Anyway, Kale368 says Pat definitely missed some reads and some throws at key moments. The tape isn't going to be pretty. I think we know that. I think some of the questions, I think there are at least two parts of this that we have to talk about. And one is how much of that is because the offensive line was giving up such quick pressure, to where he was having to leave the pocket so early. But I think the other thing is how much of this is us as fans watching. And it kind of goes something to what Travis Kell said on he and his brother have a podcast out now, and his brother Jason was asking him, about the whole PFF grade stuff on there. And Travis was talking about how, the PFF guys are going on like basic understanding of plays. They don't know what coaching staffs are asking the quarterbacks, what the rules are for their quarterbacks in a play, what the receivers are supposed to be doing. And so, I want to bring that up because the reality is we might see a receiver who looked open or got open, but they got open and they were doing something different than what Pat was expected because they're given, different options. And so Pat could have been reading the defense, and in his mind, the receiver should be going this way. Well, the receiver goes that way instead. Or, Pat's looking and he's expecting the receiver should go this way. And so he looks and the receiver's covered that way. So he goes on to his next read, but the receiver didn't read it the same way. So, I think that's a possibility on plays as well. And so I just wanted to point that out there. We're not saying Pat's perfect. Gooch is the first one to point out, the mechanical things and some of the other things there. But at the same time, I think there's multiple things for us to consider on some of this. So I want to point that out because I think those are two relevant parts of it for us to consider. And realistically, we don't know. The guys on that team know. The guys who are going to be watching film this week, they know. We, as well as PFF and other, even other commentators out there, even professional ones, there's an extent to where they're just guessing. You'll see, Kurt Warner or JT O'Sullivan, or Chris Sims or whatever, and they'll tell you at times, I think this is what, this is supposed to be. All right, Liz says, we have to realize it's the first loss. We can't be acting like Chicken Little too much yet. No, I'm not happy, but we need to get right for Tampa. A lot of work to do, but we are 2-1, even if it's ugly. And the reality is what the Raiders are 0-3 and the Chargers are 1-2.
1-2.
And I think there's a good expectation that after the Broncos play the 49ers, they'll be 1-2, or will they be?
Yeah, they'd be 1-2.
They have a win. Yeah, they do have that win because of the Browns
last week.
Yeah, so they would be 1-2. So yeah, you're going to have the Raiders at 0-3, and if things go the way we expect, the Broncos and the Chargers will be 1-2, and we'll be 2-1. So yeah, I mean, we try to find a balance, and so we're going to point out the things that are concerning, and some of the things that showed up in this game are things we've been talking about for months. Even some of the things even into last season. So I think there's an extent to where we should be concerned about them because we have to keep talking about them, and we haven't seen those things get corrected. At the same time, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't say really much good about this person, but good game from Frank. Did Karlaftis play today?
Did my headset break? Did I hear that right? Did you say good job from Frank?
He was in there. He was pressuring and got a sack. I got to give him something. Maybe not having that Uzi was helping him speed up a little bit. I didn't hear Karlaftis. Was he playing today?
Yeah, he played.
Yeah.
And
I thought he got some pressure there.
And somebody tells CJ95, when you win the game, don't cuss at the quarterback. Like, that game was ours. Even with all the mistakes, the game was ours. And he gave him the 15 because they asked the ref, and he said something to the quarterback, abusive language or whatever. So he said something to Ryan where the ref could hear it, and that's why he got the flag.
Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning. There's a lot there. To me, I thought that the beginning of that whole play, the beginning of the end of that play was the more troubling part, where Chris, is on his hands and knees right over Matt Ryan, face mask to face mask, and you can see him saying stuff to him. To me, that was like the worst part of it. But as I said, and then they were face to face when they got up, and you see that every week face to face. But I think no matter what was said, what really made it look bad was when Chris kept talking and Matt Ryan walked away and Chris kept talking. I think part of that, no matter what is actually said, I think that's the part where it seemed like that's when they threw it, and maybe it just happened to be that's when it was said. But I don't know what can you possibly say there that makes that worth 15 yards. And when you take the stuff that they didn't call, like Pat getting face masked, the DPI against Travis, this is
the late hit out of bounds.
This is a very weird moment to finally call something. And you're doing it on not an objective call, right? This is not an objective call. This is a very subjective call. And you weren't calling the objective ones, like the DPI in the end zone. When Travis would have had a touchdown, or when Pat's getting face masked, or the late hit, as you said, those are way more objective.
Still should have had a touchdown.
And this is a very subjective, call. Like, how do you explain that? Yeah, at the end of the day, you're Chris Jones. You can't control whether they call it or not. You need to shut up and walk away, or
no reason they should have still been there.
If you get the call, you better get out there and you better sack him 2 or 3 more times on this next drive. Like, you can't do that and then not make up for it, I think, is the big thing there. But
or like Barry Sanders said, act like you've been there before.
Yeah,
he could have sacked Matt Ryan. He could have sacked him, got up, did a little celebration, scream, whatever, and went right back to the line. You know what I'm saying? Act like you've been there. Act like you've done that. It's game 3. This ain't the Super Bowl. I mean, Aaron Donald did a Super Bowl saving sack on Burrow. He didn't do half the stuff you did. Turn around, went back to the line. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Nick
it's just,
Bolton stole Jonathan Taylor's manhood on 4th and 1. You know.
well, hey, you know what? That's Bolton's name, man.
You didn't see that. You
So-
haven't actually seen that play though, have you?
I haven't,
heard-
but the
you
fact
heard
that
it.
you said that, and I heard it, you should just start calling Bolton the soul stealer. Look what he did to Henry, then Jonathan Taylor. He's just the soul stealer. Oh, can we get that on some
I
merch?
like it. Yeah.
I'll go with the neuterer because he took his manhood away. I'm just going to leave it at that. You'll Gooch, when you get to
Not
see the play.
Castration.
When you get to see the play, Gooch, I mean it. Yeah.
Castrator.
But yeah, we do, Liz. We hope they continue to get coached up and improve, and hopefully this is a wake up call because like I said earlier, the defense looked like the only people who showed up for this. They looked like the only ones who spent the last week and a half game planning for this game. Offense and special teams.
Other than the zone here and there.
Everybody but Fenton.
Well, I think he's just physically limited in some ways that teams are learning they can take advantage of. They now have 3 weeks of film to see what Arizona and Los Angeles and Indianapolis have been doing. And I think you're going to see more teams exploit it. So hopefully McDuffie heals up and can get back, because I'll say this, for all the bad of seeing Fenton out there, seeing Aaron's guy Watson out there, you put Snead, Watson, and McDuffie on the field at the same time, those three, that's a hell of a cornerback room right there. Good luck. Like the back seven is going to be amazing, right? You get Willie Gay back, and you pair him with Nick Bolton. You got Snead back there. You get McDuffie with what Watson's already showing us these last 2 games here, filling in for McDuffie, and Thornhill and Reed. That's a hell of a group right there. That's a hell of a 7 players. And
I only know Fenton was getting burned because I told you I was listening to the Colts broadcast is on when I get. Even they were calling it. They were like, Pittman's on Fenton. Or Camp, one of them boys is like, look for this to go to this receiver. Fenton's on him. I'm like, oh, crap.
All right. Well, I tweeted out early in the game, I was trying to help Spags out. I said they're playing. The game they're playing right now is find number 27. Like, that's it. I mean, that's the key. That's the offensive key right there. Find number 27. Who's your receiver that he's going to be matched up on, against, and that's where you throw the ball. But anyway.
But yeah, Watson should have had another interception on one, but I was yelling for him to get his head around. So he still didn't have the best game ever.
Is this the second game without McDuffie?
Yeah.
Second, yeah.
So we gotta do the Bucks without him, and
is that it?
No, it's the Bucks, and I don't know who's after that.
Thought he could potentially be back for
Raiders.
that.
Bucks and Raiders. Well, they placed him on IR though, right? So he's got to be out for 4 games.
He's got to be out for, but he can be back in the facility this week.
So, but regardless, we won't have both he and Willie Gay on the field at the same time till what, at 49ers?
I hate that the Dolphins won, but I love that the Dolphins won.
You love that they won, or you love that the Bills lost?
Yeah, I love that the Bills lost.
Right. Well, this is going to be a fun week for Bengals fans because they got a softball in the Jets. So it's going to build some of that confidence up just for other teams down the road to continue to knock them down. So I'm looking forward to that. Doug says he thinks that the Jags are a sleeper team.
Apparently.
Well,
Yeah,
Peterson's a good coach.
Right.
Let's not knock it.
That
He has a
too.
ring.
He won a
You
Super
know what
Bowl.
I'm saying? And so he's not a terrible coach. I just assumed it would be, year 2, year 3. But he seems to have them boys buying in down there. And I mean,
Already.
I'm happy for him. He's a former Chief guy, so I'm happy for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, I don't want to play him, but I'm happy for him. I mean, that and they did spend $300 million in free agency. I mean, I'm just saying.
So Brown, Liz was talking about Brown already got a different agent.
Liz says, "Have you not fixed the lineup, Aaron?" Here's the thing, Liz. We're on a different platform, and I don't think Aaron knows how to do it yet.
No, it wouldn't let me.
So, and I'm not sure that I know how to do it yet. Uh-oh.
There it is.
Oh, he figured it out.
I got it.
It didn't let me.
I did that one.
What did you do?
I just touched my screen and rotated the pictures.
Okay. Yeah, you just click and drag. Okay. Well,
It didn't let me do that.
Once Aaron accepts my invite to be a co-host and joins the team instead of being in here as a guest, he'll have that power. But so, yeah, we're trying. We're using Melon right now instead of StreamYard. And there's a couple of cool features that we like about it more. And one is that it lets us set our intro and outro video. So when we start the stream, it automatically starts the intro video. And when we end the stream, it automatically does the outro video. But it also saves our video.
That.
Yep. It's really cool over StreamYard. But it also records all of our video streams separately and our audio streams separately. So if there's an issue, when we're filming, recording a video instead of going live streaming, it's a lot easier to edit through. So,
like
Soul
kids
Snatcher.
playing the drums.
I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, we got an extra guest.
There she is.
Hey, there's my girl.
Uh-oh. She's got green on. I got a green screen here. Can't do anything about that. Oh, well. Kids have fun with it.
That's
Soul Snatcher.
Cool.
I think I'm sticking with the neuterer. We need something better than that. The neuterizer.
Not castrator.
The neuterizer. I don't know. I'll work on it. But yeah, Bolton is a dog. I admit when I'm wrong, and I've already admitted multiple times I was wrong initially on my not wanting Bolton and my initial upset at that pick. So,
well, even our draft guys over at RGR wasn't too happy with the Bolton pick either.
Well, I think that kind of helped our opinions. Because, yeah, I'm even a Mizzou guy, and it was probably one of the only people I didn't expect us to get or didn't care if we got. Now, I'm definitely glad we did.
Right. He has way overwhelmed me with how good he is at multiple things. So, but man,
he's getting better at coverage.
Right. And I mean, the biggest thing is just the man, as Real KB said, he's a dog. Like, he is a strong, strong man. You know, what was it? Was it the Matt Ryan sack where he pulled him down with one arm, like one hand? He pulled him down. You know, that's in addition to the Jonathan Taylor play. When Gooch sees that play, he'll understand what I'm talking about there. Like, all this man does is steal the manhood of running backs. So
Neutralizer's not bad.
should all
I
be
like
fired.
that.
I mean, the good thing is we're not paid, so can't fire volunteers. Well, have we covered everything so far in this game? I feel like we basically covered everything that we needed to cover in this game.
I believe so.
Yeah, and I don't know what more there is to say. You know, it again, the biggest disappointment comes from this is the bit one, you know, you just came off of a miniature buy, and two, we're entering what we all expect, at least on paper, to be the roughest stretch of the season coming up here, right? And with the Bills losing, it hurts even worse because you still have an inside track for the number one seed, and yeah, it's early, but still, you like to keep that going as long as possible.
It's still early, so it's not a giant deal having to take a loss.
Here's a little interesting stat for you. Andrew Reeves is like what, 18-2 after a bye. Did you know he's actually below 500 on the long weeks, where it's like a
Really?
second bye? He's 5-5 up until today on games that they played on Thursday and didn't have to play till next Sunday.
Crazy.
That's interesting. Now, do you think that's because he gives the guys too much time off? Like
Could be.
in these mini buys whereas, if you do that during a real buy, it's not as, it doesn't take away as much because you still have the practice time. You're still getting in good practice time. Whereas if you do it off of one of these mini buys, you miss out. All I know, the product I saw on the field on offense and special teams, it didn't look like these guys practiced enough. It didn't seem like the game plan going in was developed enough.
What it looked like to me. Now I can't call. Honestly, I didn't watch the game, but there was a difference to me. Now special teams, I don't know what the hell was going on there, but it sounded to me as if two different people called the last two games. That's what, and I'm not knocking. This is not a knock at EB, but if what you guys were watching is similar to what I was hearing, even when it was the Colts, like even the Colts commentators seemed stunned because they were like we're being given gifts here because this offense does not look like the Chiefs' offense, and we're able to hang around. So it sounded to me like whoever called this game wasn't who called the first two games. And you could tell in the product on the field. That's my take on it. I could be completely wrong, though.
Yeah, and we talked about that earlier. Former Chief Jeff Allen had a tweet that alluded to that. It was something like, "Why do we praise Andy when the offense looks good, and then blame EB when the offense doesn't look good?" And so, we kind of got into that because, how do we know? But I know. I said how it feels to me as a fan watching these games. It feels like different people are calling the games based on what we're seeing. Yeah, we don't know for sure, but it's definitely what it feels like based on, what we're seeing or hearing going on in these games. And it could be, we've seen running backs have a series, right? So it's perfectly, I could see if they're doing the same thing as play callers, where Andy's doing a game and Evie's doing a game and Nagy's doing a game or whatever. Especially when you're working, especially the Chargers game where you have a short turnaround, and then maybe you give whoever called that game a break because of the work that they were putting in, on short rest, and somebody else, or maybe it's by design so that no defensive coordinator can catch on to tendencies because you have different people calling the game, so there is no tendency. All I know is we're speculating, and we're speculating because what we're seeing, ultimately what matters is what we're seeing does not make sense, right? That's the end of it, is what we're seeing does not make sense. So we're trying to figure it out. But yeah, as Real KB says, it's not that we lost, it's how we lost. I think it's a combination of those two, right? I think the moment people saw the Colts lose to the Jags, 24-0, they thought this defense isn't going to give up any points, and our offense should definitely score way more points than the Jags offense. I think that was part of it in people's minds. And so seeing the outcome the way it was, 20-17 or whatever, that just blew people's minds in and of itself. But at the same time, again, once you saw how the Colts started the season out, you went from, okay, this is probably a loss to this should definitely be a win. And this is going to help us to be 3-0 facing all these harder teams. And then you see this. So it's that. And then it's how we lost, so to me, it's a combination of those things on there.
Please like, share, subscribe, and comment before we forget to say it all together.
It just
Right.
it just felt like to me that whoever was calling plays didn't have a good feel for the game. I didn't hear many screams. The reason why I don't think Andy was calling plays, I didn't hear many screams. And screams are a staple of Andy's offensive play calling. Get the ball out of your hands, get that road in front of you plowed, get them backs in space. I think I only heard one or two the whole game.
I wonder, though, because it seems like that's kind of been happening the last season or so. So I'm wondering how much of that is our tackles. How much of that is Andy looking at Brown and recognizing that's a limitation, and like there are real limitations because of Brown. And if you want to throw Wiley in there, and even if you want to footnote, no pun intended, Trey Smith not being 100%, I don't know. What we do know is they've got to get better. They've got to figure out what the issues are, and they got to put in the work because they got to perform better than that. And especially,
we can't play like this next week.
The crazy thing is, like, they could have overcame this game if offense or special teams played better. You take one of those two playing better, and you win this game. And the reality probably is the offense could probably play the same way they played, and if special teams plays better, this is a bigger win than what it was, even with the offense not doing better. But if one of the two units does better, they win this game. If Harrison Butker plays in this game and is healthy enough to kick, they win this game. So if there are any optimistic outtakes to it, it's that literally, it took all of these things for them to lose this game. And it's frustrating, but that's the best positive thing I can come up with, Gooch. You guys have any?
I agree.
I'm gonna say that's my closing thoughts for the night. You guys want to give your closing thoughts here?
Let's go take out Tampa Bay. Enough said.
On a day where the Chiefs didn't have their best game and lost, all the other quarterbacks who were supposedly better than Mahomes and teams that are better than the Chiefs also lost to inferior teams today.
Except for the Bengals, but yeah, they did play an inferior team.
Yeah. Well, the Bengals was already 0-2. So it didn't. I mean, like the Bills and the great Josh Allen and the Chargers and the super stud playing with broken ribs, Justin Herbert. And they all lost today. So, I mean, it's any given Sunday. It just so happened that let's hope that we got the crappy football out of the way this game, because you've got Bucks, Raiders, Bills, and Niners the next 4 before you get a bye. And projections were if we walked out of that stretch 3-4, we were going to be lucky. So
now, you're not counting the Raiders game as a bye?
Where is it?
Does it matter at this point? We put up 40+ on them last year, both games, and well,
I know, but
it was a joke. But yeah, I mean, them starting out 0-3 with their offensive weapons is perplexing.
One of the things that Carr does best is he manages to always make it interesting for a half. And if he gets some confidence, I mean, he does have the weapons to go shoot out with us, but they just haven't. Our defense is still young. Probably the youngest defense that they're going to face, so you can probably still take advantage of them. I mean, if you really think about it, yes, the Chokeland is 0-3, and Derek Carr is their quarterback, and he's probably, well, I can't even say that now. He's the 3rd best quarterback in our division, which would be the 2nd best in any other division, except the NFC East, where he'd be 1st. You can pull some rabbits out of the hat.
You also can't call them Chokeland because they're in Vegas, and now they're Lost Vegas.
Ah, yes, you're right. Well, we always have, for all the talk about the AFC West being the best division in football, right now it looks like the AFC East, and we could have the toilet bowl coming out of our division with Chubby Russ and Derek Vehicle. Chubby Russ, can I get that on a shirt, please?
Chubby Russ, is that what you said?
Chub Russ.
So is this one of
Chub
those
Wilson. Chub Wilson.
Is this one of those situations then where you get from instead of let's ride to save a horse, ride a cowboy?
Oh, God.
All right. Well, Gooch, you want to pay the bills and get us out of here on this Sunday night. We want to thank everyone for watching and being with us. And Gooch, go ahead and pay the bills.
Yo, guys, we appreciate y'all for checking us out. We realized we hadn't been here in a while. We had a lot of stuff going on all the way across the board. A lot of family stuff for all of us. Want to wish LT and Aaron our condolences on the loss of his father-in-law this last week. And make sure you tell somebody you love them, guys. Like, seriously, because you never know when you're going to get the chance to again. Tomorrow's not promised. So we appreciate y'all, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Later, guys. Thanks.
Good night.
You got your team, and we got a kingdom. Ready for war, we score and win. We're the Super Bowl champs.